Yeah.
And humans, we've like manufactured this thing called profit. And it's like not a real thing.
That's an interesting commentary. So, what should we call it? Like the concept. I mean, the concept or the current understanding of what profit is, like that still exists. So, like,
Yeah.
what should we call that concept? Instead of calling it profit, instead of calling it creating value out of thin air, where it didn't exist before, if we were to look to the systems of nature, because nature works in a balance, in a harmony type of a thing. So
Yeah.
what could we call that? Value creation and value receipt.
So there's basically like it's basically like unaccounted for externality. That if you look at like the real cost of a gallon of gas is way more than the $3 or $4 that we pay for it.
Yeah.
Or maybe the $1.50 that Jeremy pays for it.
I'm 69.
69? Really?
Yeah, here you can get one for 169.
Do you?
Yeah, it's not from grass-fed cows, but
Good point.
But like, yeah, if you go back into like Buckminster Fuller's writings from like even like in the 60s and 70s, like a gallon of gas is more closer to like $1 million in cost if you look at like the ecological effects of burning it. And so this book had a really interesting definition for fossil fuels that I had never really even like thought of in that way. So fossil fuels, they're fossils, meaning it's super duper old, energy that's condensed over millions of years. And so what's taken millions of years to form, we're releasing in alarming rates.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're releasing it faster than it could form. That, by definition, is unsustainable.
Yeah, that's unsustainable. Definitely. No argument there.
So, understanding fossil fuels really just from a time scale, because they are fossils. I'd never thought about like, you hear people talk about fossil fuels. I've never actually considered them as if they were a fossil like a dinosaur bone.
yeah.
And when I think about it in that frame, it's like, wow, that's different.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, though.
So yeah, it definitely leaves me feeling a little like, well, we're all fucked.
So the UN has a department. I forget what it's called, but the guy that runs it or founded it, I don't know if he's still there, but the guy that founded it, his name is Gunter Pully, and he's a really cool guy. He's developed a concept called the blue economy. So it's
What was it?
The blue economy.
Okay.
The blue economy. And it's basically like a business framework which emulates the processes of nature. So taking that idea, and they don't even use those words sustainability, which I think is smart, because yeah, Ray is right. Like, we shouldn't even be worrying about trying to be sustainable. Like, it's done. We already fucked it. So, like, all we can do now is just try to build good karma. And basically, the processes of nature is karma, right? It's like a balance of energies and, So he wrote a book, and it's got like all these case studies of different businesses that have employed this successfully. And
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's cool that the UN is supporting that,
Yep. It's probably mentioned in the book that I'm reading.
Yeah, probably. Oh, yeah, definitely. If it's something on regenerative business models, yeah, this guy Gunter Pauli is like the biggest guy in that realm. But yeah, other than that, nothing else much going on, other than trying to up the game of this. I'm gonna do less of the like daily live videos, and I'm gonna do more classes. So, and it's a whole new platform now,
No.
just called Televirtual.
Televirtual, that's new.
Yeah. It's intriguing, right?
Yeah, this is the book that I'm looking at.
Okay, I feel like I've seen that before.
Could be. Tell me about Televirtual.
It's basically just, like premium content. Very similar to this. Like, one reason why I'm trying to like increase the production quality, although today not really seeming like that much, but
She'd talk serious business, you know that.
yeah, I'll get it go. It's like the last piece. So I've got, well, maybe if I get a good mic, that'll be like the last thing. But yeah, it'll be like educational content, fun content, but pretty much it's all like the premium stuff,
Nice.
And so, eventually it'll probably be published on its own platform. Oh, Mathelda and Bradley say they miss us.
Well, they should join.
You should join.
Like, if they really missed us, they would be here.
They would like cancel their whole work schedule, cancel everything else in their life, and just.
You don't have to cancel anything. You just have to take a break. It's tea time. I remember there used to be a time when tea time meant everybody stopped doing what they were doing to drink their tea.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's 9 in the morning for Mafalda, and that might be a
Yeah,
little
they're
early.
probably they're at work. They're primo at work right now. They've been working hard building stuff. I have something special today, Sam.
What do you have?
I have a nice selection of comfort pork.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Woo! Comfort pork on the ground.
I like comfort pork.
Yeah, dude, this one's really good. I got this from the Mexican market. Fresh.
That the one, it was like this big when you bought it? Just
Oh,
like
yeah, the body pillow? Yeah. Yes, I did get a body pillow full of comfort pork. There should be no questions or doubts why someone would would procure a body pillow full of comfort pork. Although, like, I don't know if we should really be eating pork right now. With
Why?
all the issues in the supply chain, there's a lot of problems. And actually, I just saw an article going around this morning that the Chinese are starting to refuse chicken from Brazil because it's coming infected with COVID, the chicken meat itself. And they say it's not supposed to be coming in our food and such. But
Wait, you mean it's not supposed to be coming in with COVID? I thought that was like a feature, not a bug.
Oh, additives. Yeah. This is really cool. Tony loves to come into our tea talks and just like leave us hanging.
Yeah. What's up? But the comfort pork, like, it's fried. Everything gets killed off of it when they fry it.
That's how I justified it. And it's dry, so there's no available water activity, to feed anything.
No, definitely opened my bag of comfort pork yesterday and ate like 2 or 3 very quickly, just right up my nose.
Did you start sneezing?
Yes. I wasn't choking, but I was definitely like, oh my God, pork in my nose.
You were
And
like
then it
dry heaving through your nose. I can imagine it.
That'd be a strange thing to be in public and that starts happening. No, it's not COVID, it's comfort pork. I'm not sick. I'm not. Trust me. Here, try some for yourself.
I think it would be so much more alarming if it was like choking versus, sneezing.
Yeah.
I think people understand that's allergies. That's all the forest fires. Hey, our sky is very hazy today here in Vegas. Are there fires? You know of, Sam, right now, active fires?
No, but it's windy and hot, so my guess is it's like a couple miles away.
You just
At least it was a couple miles away the other day.
Always assume that there's a forest fire going on when the
I don't
weather's
know.
like
Hey,
that.
let me check Pulse Point to see if we're in danger. I haven't heard any helicopters today.
Yeah, so the first series of classes I'm going to do, it's a series of 20 different classes, so it's a long program. It's almost 2 months long, doing them 2 days a week. They're only going to be like 45 minutes long. They're going to be like shorter and sweeter, like the last series I did, they were 2 hours long, which people liked them, but that's a commitment, 2 hours, even 45 minutes, like let's say you're going into it and you're like, shoot, I can only do 30 minutes. Like, you're not going to feel like you lost out, you missed out. But like if it's a 2-hour-long class and you can only be there for 30 minutes, then, you feel like maybe you're missing out on the value or something. So I want to make them shorter and just like 1 tea per class. So what I'm going to do is going to be like a casual, I'll give a presentation on the tea and its origin, maybe only 15 minutes or so. And then we'll do like 15 minutes of tasting, and then the rest of the time and while tasting, I'll just be like sharing like more like personal anecdotes about, how I met the people behind that tea and what I think of the tea, and, just trying to make it kind of like fun and entertaining, because I find that that's what people like resonate with most, more than just...
I mean, the community and connections that you make over tea are what people resonate with most. I mean,
yeah.
People ask like, "Wait, what do you do at a tea party?" I'm like, "We sit around and talk shit." Like, that's 90% of our tea parties at this point, and they're always fun.
We hold space for each other's feelings. Come on, Sam. There's more to it than just that.
I mean, holding space is basically just hippie for doing
nothing. Hot take. I feel like there's at least a couple of people whose ears are burning right now.
That's a class. I love that joke. And that joke was told to me by a purple dinosaur, so it's gold.
Yeah, that's
It was told to me by a purple dinosaur at 3:00 in the morning at a music festival. I was like, that's the best joke ever. Well, it was particularly funny because at this particular festival, which actually should be happening right now, so that's kind of sad. At that year, the term holding space, I was hearing it like every second sentence. It was almost getting annoying. But once the purple dragon told me that joke, I got it. And I'm like, you know what? This is my word forever now. I'm holding space. I'm not doing shit. Yeah, even like within our team, I was serving tea in the tea temple, and the management, like the guys that were like kind of leading the team, they came up with this term, space holders on the team. The space holders were the ones that would just make sure everybody was on time and make sure the culture and the tea space was right, and just like watching over. So I was a space holder I did a couple shifts as holding space, but maybe not in the sense that you would think, sitting at the tea table and pouring tea. It was like holding space, like bossing.
Yeah, it sounds like that sounds like Om Shanti with their managers.
Yeah, it's like that. Oh, and by the way, Omchan like friended me on Facebook and reached out to me, so we had a nice little interaction.
Nice. I had virtual tea with him a few times.
Nice, cool. Was that your first time to meet him?
Yeah.
You should tell him to come here.
I've invited him.
He probably works.
Like, it's been I haven't like plugged this space anywhere in a while.
Yeah, we got to do that.
So teaanditspeople.com.
That's my website. Yeah, you found me.
Yeah. A lot of appreciation for the retail site. It's super detailed, but not overwhelming.
Thank you.
That's like a rare combination.
Well, it's just a bunch of pictures, that's all.
Well, no, the way you included basic details,
okay,
it's appreciated. Because I don't know funk about tea. I've brewed tea. I know temperatures. I know like base stuff, but I'm already absorbing.
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot to learn and experience, and that's actually why I'd rather say there's a lot to experience than learning.
Ooh. Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Because that's what the learning is, So like last week, I got a call from somebody I met, a tea enthusiast I met at a tea festival in Chicago. She lives in LA. Actually, Sam, I got to introduce you to her. She's great. You love her. Elizabeth. She called me like kind of frustrated because pandemic has kind of limited her abilities of exploring her tea business she wanted to launch, and then finding jobs. She's like wanting to work in tea and she can't find any jobs with her expertise and skills. So she's been doing a lot of tea education, like, doing courses online, and she was just kind of communicating some frustration she was having with the quality of the education. I think she's done like 3 different tea certifications now. She's like, they're fun. I always learn something, but it's not like really, she's feeling like it's not really giving her the knowledge and the experience she feels like she needs to have to be super confident with creating this tea business or creating blends or introducing tea to people. So I told her, I said, all right, Elizabeth, I'll make some education just so you can take my classes. So I think this could be cool too, like targeting it towards tea professionals, like not that it's like any kind of set curriculum, like, oh, this day we're going to look at tea processing and we're going to look at green tea on this day and we're going to look at oolong tea on this day. I think it's more useful to just say, hey, we're just going to drink a bunch of tea together and we're just going to experience a lot together and ask a lot of questions to each other, and someone like me could be there to fill in all the blanks. You know what I mean? Like as far as the technical or whatever the curriculum would need to be, I could just fill that into that casual experiential space, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always tell people one simple thing: tea is play.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, don't overthink it, make it your own. It's your experience. Some people like their tea brewed extra bitter. Some people like their tea, it's kind of make it your own.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. Tea is play.
Yeah. It's not a textbook. Who likes textbooks anyway,
Yeah.
I prefer books.
You prefer textbooks?
I said picture books.
Oh, picture
Yeah.
books. Okay. Yeah.
Pop-up books, please.
Yeah.
Pop-up books with like hang tabs that like cause like creatures to go like this. I love that. I remember when I first started T-Let, like the first few customers that I got, I was so excited to pack their orders, and it was like during the holidays. And I like made these pop-up greeting cards for them. They were so cute. And I came across a photo on Instagram of one yesterday. I was like, I can't believe I did that. I spent like 3 hours on each of them. Using like pipe cleaners. I like shaped pipe cleaners to make it into the shape of like a tea farmer holding up like his plucked tea leaf in the tea field, and the tea field's like moved like this. Yeah. I'm surprised I'm not a billionaire by now.
Not with ideas like that.
I was so disappointed when I sent that package out and I didn't even get like an email or anything, you know? Like, had I received a package like that with a pop-up card, greeting card like that, I would have like written a blog about it and posted about it on the internet and put it on Reddit, but I didn't hear anything back. So that really discouraged me from doing that again. Tea pop-ups.
Bitcoin is super adorable.
Oh, you found Bitcoin.
Yeah, totally trolling like all of your stuff.
Cool, please.
Super getting very good tea vibe. I've tried to get myself back into my coffee regimen, but my heart isn't in the coffee. I don't think. I think I'm
Better for the coffee to not be in your heart, also.
all the sterols and stuff that they say, and like I get it. And plus, I think like I liked coffee when I was immersed in IT and just a way more bitter in general. Like large enterprise always go serious stuff. And I don't want that flavor profile. I think I want more options over flavor profile.
So here's Bitcoin Live.
Bitcoin
Bitcoin! What a cutie!
He's such a cutie.
I am not ready for my close-up, Mr. Doyle. I like it. Cute.
Yeah, he's a cutie. He's a Chihuahua. Chihuahua.
Even cuter.
Chihuahua Beagle mix. That's why he got these, like, floppy ears. Yeah.
So Biwawa and Beagle mixed.
Yeah.
So Beagle Chihuahua mixed
Chihuahua
Beagle.
and Beagle, yeah. But Biwawa, that's what he prefers to be called.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I like the Chihuahua. And the underbite comes from the Chihuahua, right?
Yeah, probably.
So the underbite is just like Bitcoin attitude.
Yeah, that's just his little attitude.
Ain't nobody mean mugs like Bitcoin.
He'll just like be in the car with his head out the window, mean mugging everybody, just like cutie.
We used to do, when I worked international development, I had a big hand. Okay, I'll give myself that. I had a big hand. And before everyone had created apps for everything, our international development firm was one of the first ones giving farmers in remote areas access to mobile technology to coordinate pricing across small scale and subsistence farmers, so they weren't getting taken advantage of by the regional aggregators and people taking their wares to market, so they could all actually like do good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm back to all of that, all those encounters and all those lives changed from scrolling through your grower list.
Yeah. Who did you work for?
We're all over the place. Did a lot of good stuff, and I miss that feeling.
Who did you work for, Tony?
It was Catholic Relief Services.
Okay.
The international development arm of the Catholic Church.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, which explains, I went from politics and got disillusioned, and then international development in a fairly fraught socio-political, socio-religious space.
Yeah.
So, of course, further disillusioned. Do amazing work. But the challenge I had is when the ideology impacts the practicality of good capacity building. Like, come on, just please distribute condoms in Africa. I get it, Catholicism, but just you're the chief recipient of money from the president's emergency program for AIDS relief, and you're denying condoms?
Oh, seriously? Wow, that's interesting.
I'm sorry?
I said that's interesting.
Yeah, it's little
Distributing
things, you know.
condoms in Africa is not easy, though. Have you ever tried it?
Actually, supply chain logistics and all that stuff the world over was one of my pet fascinations for a little while, and working with our program off to get everything from VSAT equipment to basic subsistence stuff to from sub-Saharan region to the Horn to literally the middle of India.
But you effectively gave people condoms, and you feel confident that they use them or were going to use them?
Oh, no.
Okay,
No.
that's what I was asking.
No. I thought you meant just the logistics of it. Never
No.
mind the cultural challenges.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I did that for a couple of years, and that was a huge challenge. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Niger, and we did a lot of
beautiful.
AIDS sensibilizations, and it was just such a nightmare. We did this like really cool AIDS bike ride every year. We would ride like 300 miles up from the Nigerian border, to the capital of Niger. And we'd stop in every village along the way, and we had like this troupe of like actors that would do all of these like HIV/AIDS education plays and musicals. So that's how they could do it. That's how they could communicate. And we would come in like with a whole parade, and there was like freaking 200 white kids just like pedaling, in. And we'd like make a big circle and dance and clap with music, and then these actors would teach about how.
It's in Book of Mormon.
I have not seen that. No.
I'm aware of it, but
I'm sorry, Elise. I got interrupted.
I can see where you're going with what she was saying, and then where you're referencing.
Yeah, I wish I knew the reference. I've heard it's great. that's just one thing I haven't experienced in my life yet. But like just very simple education about the virus was like so difficult to communicate, and giving condoms to them would actually like lead to like people getting beat up and stuff. My neighbor, I took her to go get an AIDS test after her husband took in a second wife who was obviously a prostitute. Shameful, and he wouldn't let her go get tested or use condoms or anything, and so she like begged me to secretly take her to get tested, and thank goodness she was negative. And the second wife prostitute, she left the village after like 4 days. She was like, fuck this shit. I'd rather hang out at the bar all day and make money than sit in the bush.
When I so we did farm book. We did farm book again. Crop prices for remote folk water and sanitation spaces where CRS is really super active, and where I first learned that communicating across cultural boundaries is really freaking hard. Like you say, condoms. Okay, sure, bring them condoms, but how do you get the culture around it? Well, okay, water and sanitation. Put a toilet in a village that for generations has not using central sanitation like that, and you have this huge barrier of tradition and culture to overcome to bring sanitation education into the fold and make it a habit and show the value generationally that it can have. It's a really hard narrative to make culturally relevant. And it's really depressing when you don't see it take root. See little bits of it take root, and it gets to be like that thing that sustains you. We did water, a lot of water sanitation work. We prenatal care, giving like those indestructible Nokia phones to expectant mothers in rural, really far out there places, so they could get their fetal vitamin reminders, get their checkup reminders, text symptoms to their providers, and get like good care. And even then, all of those things, you can a horse to water doesn't always drink if the horse doesn't know like how to drink from the crazy sippy straw you've given it, right? Like it's a progress, and that pathway isn't always clear, economically, socially, politically, and it's something that I've wanted to go back to that space, but in a way that's sustainable for me emotionally, because a lot of that disillusionment, when you talk about that feeling of like this woman who wants to get tested and be safe and have autonomy over her own body, and so many cultural constructs that prevent that and actively work against her autonomy and her dignity, and like that feeling. I know you know that feeling. That was a hard one to carry. In fact, before when I met my husband, 3 months in, he got a Navy change of station orders. It was about 2 weeks away. Had I not left my job from going to Abuja, Accra, doing like the whole central tour to facilitate the seed fair that we had just started sponsoring, where we would seed fair, give away seeds, crops, but they would be tagged and iPhone tracked, and allotments were so we knew who was getting what and was going to support that in the field. I'm not sure whether I'm happy or sad having had the opportunity to go on a African tour through Central and West, but I don't know. It's a scary world out there, and it's tough to know how to help.
Yeah. It's endless.
Mm-hmm.
So, either you get lost in that and lose hope and lose energy, or, you just focus on the little things, starting with ourselves, right?
And then when it gets hard, you remember that one of many moment, that at least that one moment of dignity that you brought to this other individual, where you said, I see you and recognize your need. I help, come, let's go. And even if that's a drop in the desert, it literally, I know that those bits of love, when I was in a place in my life that felt very loveless, are what helped me blossom into who I am today. And I like to think that those little bits of love that you leave, even when they're in the middle of a desert, they still help people sprout somewhat more verdantly than they would have otherwise.
Oh, definitely.
Just helps make it feel a little less hopeless, I guess.
Interesting to consider. We talk a lot about like colonization,
Mm-hmm.
and all of this work. This is great. Everything you guys have described is great humanitarian aid. There's a line somewhere where it becomes colonization and like shoving culture onto people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's trying to get people to go to the bathroom in toilets. That's crossed that line. But that doesn't mean that there's not a line and that it's kind of fuzzy and people aren't in agreement of where that line is. That white people coming over to the U.S. and shoving their culture onto the indigenous here thought they were helping.
Yeah.
Yep. And when that toilet comes with a Bible, is that who like what's the like where's the in a community that's known to not be aware or not aware but known to not recognize the Bible in the same way as the folks bringing the toilet, and then the folks that bring the toilet say, here's a Bible, that makes things a lot harder in the toilet space. It's super complicated realm, because where do you draw the line between capacity building and colonization, especially when you look at loan programs like what China is doing all over Africa. They're putting these countries that are already just fresh out of European colonization under immense debt to build infrastructure under the umbrella of another colonial empire. It's like it's just you're setting up so many oppressive structures, and it's hard to know which ones are potentially oppressive structures, and it's hard to know which ones are sustainable and actually building something for these communities, creating long-term additional value for these communities, rather than just trying to shift them into something that's more directly beneficial to us.
Yeah, well, I would say there's a big difference between battling countries with debt over infrastructure and like a Bible coming with like Christian groups going and spreading their message in as part of these good works. That I think I see that much more targeted towards the people than the governments.
Mhm.
And the targeting the governments the way China does, that's kind of more, to me, that's more of a colonial problem than like that spreading of religious beliefs.
My personal like frame of reference is like most of what I know about Africa is about two countries that I'm passionate about, Tanzania, Congo. But my great aunt was a missionary midwife in Africa for 35 years and delivered 30,000 babies.
Wow.
And raised countless kids and had to run for her life 3 times when they were the priests and the nuns and the missionaries and the locals were getting massacred. And like having that reference is, yes, it was, she got to be there because of Belgium when it was the Belgian Congo, but she more talked about like when people asked why are you doing it is when she would bring up that it was because of her faith. She was there because she loved babies and wanted to help, and because she raised thousands of babies who were orphans. But like being aware of the history specifically in the Congo and when it was the Belgium Congo, and then now like how China's royally screwing it up. In addition to how they're currently screwing it up themselves. And, like, I get the Congolese news feed on my phone, which is not so good for my heart. But
Yeah.
knowing, like, I know it more from the personal side because she said, like, that, like, she was essentially my grandma, and he never had any kids. He never got married. She's like, why should I get married? I'm married to Jesus. And like, why should I have kids? I have 30,000 of them. But specifically her, like when she passed away, people lined up across the continent shouting her name. And to have that, like, know that the only reason why she did it was out of love, not to put anything down anybody's face, like the fact that she was 4 foot nothing, fighting against the rebels to save babies, and like her story is crazy. But like knowing it from that side, I know that she was able to go over there because of Belgian rule, but I know that like my version of her missionary journey was very, very different than the typical journey, because like she went over there because she was a nurse, because she was a midwife, because she wanted to help the places where they needed it most. But not necessarily, I'm going to go to convert the masses.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm called by my faith to help others, so I'm going to help others.
mm-hmm.
Like,
let alone picking the hardest, craziest,
most hard, just like the when Idris Elba in not No Country for Old Men.
Book of Eli?
No, that was Denzel. It's where the movie about child soldiers. I think it was based on a true story out of North Africa. Oh gosh, what was that movie called? Beasts of No Nation. Beast
Yeah.
of No Nation. Yeah, that was phenomenal. I watched it with my husband's parents, and it was just it. You get a lot of feelings attached to the communities when you work with them, and like it's really good to be attention being paid in some way to these issues, because it helps take that burden that, like, when you are out in those spaces, and I don't mean to speak for you, Elise, or anybody, when you're in those spaces, you take away a lot of it with you. And when you see other people getting excited about it and passionate about it, and like, holy shit, it's in Hollywood now. Idris Elba, he was on like GQ or something, and now he's in a movie about there's attention, people are caring. It makes all of that stuff a little bit, and all of those things that like keep you awake at night. You're just like, all right, maybe it won't be like that forever, because it's hard sitting here, Bankers Hill, San Diego. You know, I can't imagine what else I want out of life. You know, like and he just. Sorry, a little bit of a little bit of nostalgia right there, but I guess nostalgia is probably the wrong word. But I think that's I'm so excited to hear people talking about telling stories more, stories of transformational healing across cultures, so that trauma suffered from before doesn't move forward, but survival skills learned from that trauma are passed on. And when you approach communities that are divergent from your own, and you sort of remove your own cultural message from it and try to find ways to pass on that survival message in a resonant fashion, it does exactly what you were talking about. It helps the communities without imposing your own cultural prerogative on folks, which who knows whose cultural prerogative is right. I think we're all getting better at that, like DRI and other folks that have sprung up around a lot of the disasters that popped up around the first decade of the millennium. Folks are getting better at bringing relief. And
DRI, I've never heard of that.
Direct Relief International.
Okay.
There's organizations that are getting really good at the logistics, but the capacity building and culture building is so hard in the face of globalization and colonialism. Yeah, I get scared that I don't know what to do to help anymore, and that sometimes my own self-serving pats on the back of I'm doing my little bit. Should I be doing more? Like oh gosh.
We like to go through organizations that work with local communities, like that are already there, already on the ground, that they're locals. So it's like, I'm going to give locals the supplies and they can use it where need be. And like, we sponsor 5 girls in Tanzania, and we give gifts to the family or to the kid, but the families are the ones that decide to decide how to use it. It's not like the organization or me or anybody. Mm-hmm. Right now, especially with COVID, it's like, you need food? Okay. And like, they'll send us pictures of the kids, and you spend $20, $50, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you bought insulation for your tin roof house. Like, there's nothing better that I could have given this to anybody. Like, you bought fabric and insulation and a 20-pound bag of rice. And like, that was her birthday present. And so cool that you're like, there's nothing that anybody could have done except for the parents or the, like, one of her girls is an orphan, so her older sister is her guardian. And like, so they are the ones to decide. And it works with like the local church or the local people, or ideally not the government, especially in the countries that I'm passionate about. Necessarily the best thing that's really how we've been, especially with groups that are like, let's give locals the supplies and they can they can do what they need and they can say where they need support and we can provide that for them, but it's not the white man going necessarily doing it. It's here are the supplies.
Yeah. And that was the great thing about a lot of Catholic Relief Services work, as much as I'll talk about some of the things that I did have problems with. They primarily worked through programs in the localities, in the communities that they served. They would raise up people through, and it's the church's community and colonialism and religion. Okay, but at least aside from that for a second, they would raise up people in the community and teach them to run these programs, train them on computers where viable. Catherine, oh gosh, I forgot her. Catherine. I forgot her last name. We worked on a GIS project together. I deployed ArcGIS for our global, like the whole, like every program office anywhere. And she was the one that went to these communities, taught them how to use Esri's platform to do everything from like, I don't know, water resource mapping to whatever you could imagine using GIS software for. Giving.
The funny thing is, you look at, like, you hear from what's going on, like, with these church plants, and listen to the messages and, like, the way that they're speaking, and it's actually, like, truer to the teachings than you hear in the mega churches amongst all the white people.
Yeah. It's ideas and the exploitation of people's fondness for comforting ideas is something that's going to happen in any milieu with anything. And sometimes that exploitation or parasitism isn't even parasitism. Sometimes it's just symbiotic. Sometimes it's just the way of the market, right? Or the way of the natural ebb and flow of the tribe. Whether it's going to be an Eastern religion, a Western religion, a local culture, there's still going to be some form of extractive practice that will prevail, because in less connected societies, I believe anecdotally it's easier for Machiavellian personality types to prevail and sort of kind of take the reins and usurp or game whatever systems are in place to try to create more equitable societies, if just for the sake of them getting the win, right? And as you get more connected, you have different risks, but you mitigate that local risk to an extent. But then, is that good? Would you rather have the devil you know or the devil you don't? Like, that's a never-ending. Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you go out and teach people to be good to one another.
Also, Sam, I didn't introduce myself to. Her name escapes me.
Hannah.
Hannah. Hi, Hannah. A little bit late.
Okay, you can introduce yourself again. Which, in fact, I think something came up at work. She's got the afternoon off.
Great for y'all holding space for that dialogue. That's.
Yeah, I mean, we really didn't do anything.
It's something I don't get to cry about often. Not in a positive way, and I'm learning that as a part of therapy for a lot of that stuff, is that you got to let yourself really feel through it, because if you put a cork in it, it just doesn't. I would love to get back out in the field. I don't know.
You should join the Peace Corps. That's the only way to do it.
What's that?
I said you should join the Peace Corps. It's the only way to do it. Really?
I mean,
I'm very anti-NGO, anti-charity, anti-nonprofit. Very much.
Not for very good reason. But I'm sorry.
And the Peace Corps is interesting. Like, all the things that we've been talking about, Kennedy had that in mind when he started the program, was that, like, first and foremost, this is like a diplomatic program. for our
Mhm.
country. So that's okay, to be a part of that system. But like they thought about all of those things, that like this should be a very low funded project. Any of the funding as far as like housing the volunteers, that must be paid for by the community that's hosting the volunteer, not by the U.S. government.
Mhm.
And the like education and resources that we are given by the State Department is just like, depending on what your area of focus is, either agriculture, resource management, education, business, IT, they give
Mhm.
you, pointed projects to activate with the community, and they teach you a lot of them. And they say you're not going to be able to do all of them, and not all of these are appropriate for your community. Go to your community for the next. Actually, they force you to go to your community for at least 1 month when you go, and you can't leave, and you're not supposed to be like interacting with any other Americans, because they really want you to like integrate with the community and like listen to them first, before you decide which projects you're going to, try to activate in the community. And I learned my lesson hard. My first year, I tried. I'm an overachiever. I just have to work a lot and do a lot.
I can do everything.
I'm gonna do
because my heart
everything.
will power me through it.
Yeah, I did that.
I know
And every one of those projects failed, and was really heartbreaking, because it's like you put so much work into it, and then just to see the project failed, not because of my failure, but because the people didn't actually want it or need it. I was just kind of forcing it in. And so then I spent my second year just kind of chilling out and more focused on learning language, more focused on making friends and doing that, versus go, project. And through that ended up like a project naturally manifested, and that turned into a very successful thing. And so like from that experience on, I've been really focused on not acting too fast, sitting back first and listening to what is actually needed before acting and kind of forcing my own paradigm onto the community.
Mhm.
So, yeah, in relation to what we were talking about, or what you guys were talking about maybe like 5-10 minutes ago, about like what is the line between, colonization and not colonization. I think that line is pretty fine, but there's like a wide range of harm that can be done. Not all colonization is evil and terrible. A lot of it is. It's violence in its nature, yes. Like taking over a power dynamic over somebody else is an act of violence, even if you don't cause physical harm to them. So yeah, I think like talking about this, we got to take it very seriously, and even identify the nuances. And these like charities are part of that nuance. That like they make people feel good. They're extremely inefficient. I mean, that was my main observation. I'm sure Tony, you probably made those observations about how inefficiently these organizations are run.
I think, and that's where I don't know how to balance my, I guess, techno elitism with my desire for like, I don't know, because with Peace Corps does amazing work in the immediacy. Though in my exposure to the literature in the development space, the capacity building impacts of Peace Corps have been not as much of a force multiplier over time as one would, I guess, hope in the communities that they serve. And that's also a good thing.
How is that measured as well?
What's that?
How is that measured?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's one of the hardest things too. Like, there's no there's so few good metrics to track for so much of this stuff.
Because like really the really important capacity building that we need to focus on is like stuff that's like under the roots, you know, that you can't measure, you know. Somebody's willing, like this is the main thing that Peace Corps does outside of its development work. Like the first two goals of Peace Corps is for, the first one is for Americans to be exposed to a different culture and then come home and expose that culture to their friends, right? And then the second one is for Americans to share American culture with these, you know, foreign cultures. And there's a lot of power in that. And how is that measurable? You know, like every time I tell somebody one of these stories, I'm supposed to call the Peace Corps and say, hey, you know, put a little tick next to my name. I did it.
Got one.
That's what the $R system is for.
You know, so I think, yeah, there's a lot of things that are immeasurable and they're subtle. They're super subtle, but they're very important. Like increasing someone's capacity to have empathy in someone else's perspective is huge. And for a lot of these communities, they would never ever have that because they never get exposed to a different culture. And, you know, not to say that, oh, that value is going to come because then they can immigrate to Europe and they can assimilate there. No, that's not
right.
That's not the value. The value is for them to become more critical thinkers, for them to increase their ability, you know, to increase their perspective, which increases information, increases knowledge, increases, you know, opportunity. But you can't measure any of that shit. I'm sorry, what, Sam?
Empowering individual.
Yes. But maybe it's not directly empowering. It's just, yeah, it's subtly empowering. It's so subtle. It's just like how these conversations we have are subtle. Like these conversations we're having, we're not changing anybody's lives or changing anybody's mind. But just that little bit, someone, you know, got introduced to a new perspective, that can be world changing for them, you know?
Like, I think that in the big scale, it's hard to make huge changes. But, like, again, I come from the perspective of our girls. And, like, we specifically pick girls who are older, who are more at risk for exploitation, who are more at risk with HIV and AIDS. And, like, they start with a second or third grade level education, and two of them are in college right now. One of them is going to be a teacher, and one is going to be a police officer. So, like, I think on the it's hard to change people's lives, but it's been incredible to see that these girls in their 20s are not married because they don't want to be yet, and they want to get an education, and they don't have to get married. And like that they can, one of our girls graduated from the program because she is a manager at a hotel and can support her entire family on what she has. And like my dad is like, it must be a girl because they're the most at risk. And so like, even though you don't feel like you can make a huge difference in all of the Congo or for us in the Tanzania, it's like, well, to see a girl who is 16 who had maybe a second grade level education, who's at the University of Dar es Salaam, there's two of them there, and like that they want to become a teacher and go back to their communities and give back and teach girls, and like that we have 5 or 6 years of letters saying you are strong, you are beautiful, this is how you show your beauty, no matter what anybody thinks about you. And like to be that little voice in their ears and to be able to be a doctor who's female and be an example to them. And like, to me, that is life changing. And like to have a girl in a small community be able to provide her entire family who's an orphan, like, I understand on the big scale, and I completely agree with you on the big scale, but I also have a very biased opinion because, like, I am so silly proud of them. But
I need to hear that biased opinion more and more and more. Like, that's such a wonderful way to be biased. Like, that's just phenomenal.
I am probably as proud as their birth families. Like, you are going to be in politics. You are going to be a teacher. You are going to support your whole family.
Mhm.
Two of them are in their 20s and they're not married, and they haven't they're not even talking about it. Like, that gives them control over their futures, and it takes away the control of their futures. Like, yes, the parents get to decide how stuff gets done, but it also takes away control of their futures from their families,
Mhm.
because they're not brides, they're not domestic violence victims, they're not exploited, they are not prostitutes, and they are not used.
They have autonomy to choose to be in the role that they want to occupy in that family space, and they're at the top role because they're the ones doing the providing. And that's where the hard part for me is. So in the IT space, scalability is kind of one of the things that I do best. Make things run anywhere and for everyone on. Sorry, excuse me. Scalability, make things run anywhere at good speed. And the message of building that you're talking about is hard for me to reconcile, because I just want to click a mouse button and then deploy a new commandlet to everybody's brain and say, hey, be just and equitable and fair and love everyone.
Yeah.
Of course, people don't work like that. And then hearing you, it's just this dialogue is really, really good. Just refocusing it and saying, yeah, no, 3 generations from now, her job that fed her young sister now has nutrition and access to an education. So not only is she getting an education, she's learning better because she's got food in her, and that's a force multiplier for the local. It's just that it level sets the why is everything wrong, and says, oh no, things are still going right. So it's a very
Everything's not wrong.
Metrics are hard, and I agree with that, but the metrics that I look at is that children of sponsor kids don't need sponsors. They'll essentially break the cycle of poverty for that entire family. So it's not big scale, and it's only we've done this for 6 kids now from us, but as a family, we've been doing this since I was 6. And my parents have 6 kids, and we have 6 kids, and it's okay, well, that's 6 cycles of families that are the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 girls that are exploited, and 6 girls, specifically girls, that get an education, and it's not huge, but it's my way of not feeling helpless. It's not because I don't want to feel helpless, it's I want to feel like I can actually make a meaningful difference on something I feel so passionate about that I can't change on the big scale. So you're darn right, I'm going to teach a girl that she is valued and that education is good and that she is not an object. And maybe she'll teach her siblings and her kids, and maybe she'll not get married till she's 27 either. Until after she has the college degree. And
I had a long conversation with Professor T.J. Talley at USD here. They're a professor of African American Studies, Integrative Cultural, I forget the exact title of the department, but we were talking about exactly that, how even my desire for scaled change is in and of itself fraught with problematic pretexts and contexts in a lot of the ways that we've talked about here, and how giving that individual autonomy can in many ways be that black swan event that changes the entire dynamic of a local social dynamic, or local social ecosystem, what have you. So don't fall into my bitter cynicism that isn't a massive change, because you are right. That is a massive, massive change when you look at the cultural forces that are stacked against folks, and to have those success stories. It's important to feel grandiose about those successes, as long as it's not like self-congratulatory.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that you were or anything, just saying like, I don't want to feel like I'm like, oh yeah, we did. No, I didn't mean that. Like,
I'm the proud aunt who like has their pictures on our fridge. Not even my niece has a picture on the fridge. So.
Thank y'all so much.
Good, Tony, you brought something good. That's an interesting concept. The concept that even forcing our idea of scaled prosperity could be a conflict of culture, a conflict of what is actually, autonomously and authentically needed. Yeah. And so that could be considered colonialism, just as sponsoring kids could be considered colonialism. And that's why I prefaced everything saying that there's a range. Not all colonialism is harmful. It could be very beneficial. But what I want to focus on is if we do want to decolonize our thoughts and our, intentions and energies around the world, how do we do that? And looking at the system. How can we make systemic changes so that the benefits that the sponsorship is giving to, these fortunate, girls in the program, how can that be scaled to the entire population of people that consent to that, Because then that's how you would decolonize that idea. They would consent and they would actively engage with it. They would actually actively engage with the work to empower themselves.
Interesting concept. Capacity building consent, like colonial consent. Just throwing those words together and thinking about that. I don't even know how to articulate why that's interesting to me, but I like where that takes the brain juices.
No, that was all you, Tony, man. You're the one that brought that up. I had never even really thought about that. Our desire, my personal desire, even my work. So I'm trying my best not to force it. I listen to the people I work with before I make a decision on what I need to do, as far as the business model and the frameworks and such. But even, I'm going around the world, saying that sustainability of the tea industry is going to be dependent on the market appreciation of tea going up, and, the business opportunity for tea farmers to go up. But is that authentically what, these communities consent to wanting to build and to need? Am I forcing my ideology on this system? It's important to keep that in check.
I forget where I read it. There was an article about hats. Panama hats, the woven straw Central American style hats, which are titled Panama hats, but aren't made commonly in Panama. I think it's El Salvador, Honduras. I forget exactly where the traditionally made. And you have a specific region in that country that's just the trade that's been passed down, and that's where they're produced. You have one village in that region that produces, just churns out, basic quality, go. And you have the local and national governments trying to convince their village in that same region that turns out the artisanal, $5,000, but they make one every 6 months hats, super, that kind of stuff. I don't even know how to articulate it. And it makes less in terms of revenue, but it's their art, it's their passion. And they are refusing to buckle in the face of the national government saying, well, you need to just make more. Stop making the pretty ones, just make more of them. No, we like making our pretty ones. This is what we do. Let us do our thing. Stop. It's kind of do you bring people into quote unquote economic prosperity because it's just de rigueur nowadays? Hey, increase your GDP. That's what we all do. Metrics, spiritual. What's that?
Third countries to make them free.
I couldn't hear you. It was blurry.
We invade countries in order to make them free. You you have to be as free as we are.
Oh goodness.
Exactly.
Oh, goodness.
Yep, that's it. You need to be as, economically developed as us. You need to be a consumer like us. No.
Or else we'll light the freedom sparklers. What a world. What a world. No, and that was something that Professor Talley really drove home in me, is that so many of these attempts at equality drive us further away from equitability, and drive us further away from a world where people have the blank canvas to articulate their lives and societies as they see fit, because of a pursuit of ideals that are aligned with an entirely different society's worldview. There's certain fundamentals like, okay, getting good sanitation and reasonably able to eat, and don't ruin people's stuff. But even then, relativism is a funky thing. Subjectivity is a funky thing. And who's to say that? I don't know. I'm no fixer. Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, you've been quiet.
Yeah, Jeremy, let's hear what you got to say.
I'm just listening.
I know, but every time I call on you in these situations, you drop the knowledge bomb.
Okay, you shouldn't have said that. Now there's too much pressure on me. I don't know. The one thing that kept running through my head was a quote. It's actually a quote from Mother Teresa, who said, not all of us are capable of doing great things, but we are all capable of doing small things with great love.
Yes.
And you don't need to change the whole world. You can just change a person one at a time, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Small things with great love. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Really great framing.
Finding Calcutta.
Yeah.
We did a Veritas forum at Fresno State, and she was one of the speakers. And I read her book afterwards.
Yeah, one baby step at a time is good. And Hannah, I'm not meaning any offense, on your actions and your passions. It's good. Obviously, it's good. I just like to be, asking deeper questions about the systems.
Of course.
Yeah, how do we scale these opportunities? Because it's not that much money. You think about it, it's like, wow, the sponsorship really makes a big difference. It's not that much money. How could we create systems where these individuals can autonomously create value to support themselves with that? That's what I like to ask.
I think we're going to get really, really accelerated pace of change in the COVID era, unless we get a vaccine and everyone just forgets about it and goes back to sneezing on each other. But we have a big all-stop placed on this analog value extraction of people, where you're a person, I need value from you, extract through transactions. Well, that doesn't work when people can't be. And when you have us here saying, well, we have 50% of the country now that we can't extract value from, well, what do? Well, they're all connected to the internet, so let's extract value digitally. Wait a second. We're finding that it's better to do transformational value creation and exchange because it's more sustainable than just extraction. So I think as we bring ourselves to the point where we're actually, I guess, practicing what we preach of a fashion, I think it'll be much more exportable, because I believe it'll become much more desirable when we start talking about universal sustainment incomes for individuals so they can pursue a life of passion, service, creation, whatever, wealth gathering, anything they want to do, because we have the economy to give them an underpinning. And then the rest of the world looks at it and says, oh, that's a way better model than the Industrial Revolution gave us. Let's try that. And then it's consent, then it's organic, it's chosen. sort of like, well, no, I can't say that. Sort of like our current, no, our current model wasn't chosen. It was definitely pushed on folks, but I don't know. That's the hope, is we'll figure something for ourselves out, and then other folks will take examples from that and then figure something else for themselves out, and we'll all start very rapidly iterating on this new hyper digital era, assuming it lasts. I'm actually torn as to whether I don't know. What's a world that continues under COVID restrictions or COVID like existential criteria? What's the world that goes back to the way it was before? I don't know if either of them are.
So I have a friend that's running for president. This is a new thing. He announced his campaign exactly the same time that Kanye announced his. But this guy's actually like legit. He's, a self-made billionaire himself. He's self-funding his campaign. He's a Bitcoin influencer, so that's how I know him. He's one of the first Bitcoin influencers. And he did his first town hall yesterday, and just talking about his campaign. His campaign's gonna be cool. His platform is gonna be like an open source platform where people can like read what's already been written and then comment and add and rewrite. And there's going to be like discussion forums and roundtables on the platform itself. I'm really excited. I mean, this is like a super high tech guy doing it. But anyway, yesterday in his town hall, somebody asked about UBI, because that's something that's like a hot topic.
UBI.
People are really into that. And he says that he doesn't like calling it UBI. He's calling it Universal Earned Income. UEI.
Ooh, big.
It's different.
Yeah, it's a really important shift.
Yeah, one word, but it changes the whole concept of it. It's like, no, this is not a handout. Like, and so that goes back to this idea of like, how could we create these systems within these like charity networks of like self-sufficiency, like, closed systems for each, autonomous closed system for each individual with as minimal outside, coming in as possible, autonomy as much as possible. So, so how do we create value, and how can the governments facilitate that exchange of creating value and earning income for that value you've created?
I had a 1 hour conference call this morning that turned into a 3 hour conference call about the exact same topic. Yeah, and coincidentally enough, it took us to cryptocurrency, smart contracts, and things of that sort. Brock Pierce.
Brock Pierce, yep, that's my friend. Yeah, you should check him out. Vote for him if you can. I think if he's getting himself on as many state ballots as he can. But you might be able to write him in. But I mean, even if you don't vote
more
for him,
in the underpinning. I'm sorry.
Even if you don't vote for him or he doesn't win, I don't think he'll win. But like the platform that he's going to be launching itself could be extremely powerful, and like especially activating younger people to have these roundtables and the Constitution. He's educating on the Constitution. I love it. He was educating on the political party system yesterday. He was like, it's so bogus that we're working within this two-party system when it's a completely fabricated thing. And even our forefathers and George Washington himself declared that we shouldn't have majority factions, that we need to keep things, without these labels. And then that took me on a rabbit hole to research the history of the political parties. And like the Republicans used to be the progressives, and then they flip-flopped, in the 80s. And so it's like, even this whole concept of the parties is just this completely fabricated thing.
I think George Will, in my opinion, put it in a way that resonated with me when he said that it's a necessary organization of our animosities. Because we're an incredibly diverse country. And if you look at a lot of, let's take a lot of different areas in Europe, East and West, when you have these multi-party systems, even in spaces that are way more culturally homogenous than us, these multi-party systems are still incredibly challenging to build consensus in. And I'm trying to imagine in our system, a multi-party, with our degree of diversity and our inability to come to terms with it as it stands, almost be terrified to see in the old way how we would handle multi-party. I think in the new way, when you start factoring in stuff like, let's just drop the word blockchain in there, and other novel technologies that give people differing amounts of agency and buy-in to different elements of our socio-political cultural ecosystem, you have ways to tap into that animosity organization that are less binary without creating the crossfire of contention that the multi-party systems do. I don't think we've really clearly articulated a way to work value exchange in our society outside of through exchanges of animosity. Like, it's just kind of the push and pull of everything. But
I think the idea of the multi-party systems, in order to build consensus, they require meeting in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And they may not require meeting in the exact middle, but they require meeting in the middle between multiple parties, which is closer to the exact middle than our polar system, where essentially we have the power, so we're going to do anything we want, and the other people are like, we're going to do everything we can to stand in your way. There's no incentive to meet in the middle in a binary system. There's just fighting time until you can get the talking stick. I had completely forgot that I have a 4 o'clock. You guys will continue.
I think
You guys are.
no, I got to jump in
Yeah,
4
this
as well.
is a good time.
Thank you for calling that out. Thank you all for the space. This is very. I feel like I just had like Anne Hathaway, Les Mis, ugly cry moment of just like and just that cathartic feeling of afterwards, like.
That's probably from the sweat of the earlier like stroll through.
Yeah, it's still it's definitely warming. I don't have my fan on. I'm listening here for the. Yeah, I'm gonna go sing "I Dreamed a Dream" and get inside the meeting.
Bye, Tony. Good seeing you.
All right, bye
Thank you.
guys. Love you guys. Have a great weekend.
Hi, Jeremy.
Bye.